What's on? Chris here from the inkslinger.co.uk with another episode of The Word Slinger. And quite a lot to cover this week. In big news, we've got yet more updates on the forthcoming Marvel Cinematic Universe edition of Spider-Man. New Alien film. Is that actually happening? And of course, we'll have a little bit of a chat at the end about the tragic, in fact, news this past week of the passing of the late, great Leonard Nimoy. But first of all, it's March, and March means 2 months to go until both DC and Marvel go head-to-head in their big events for the year. Now, for DC, this means convergence, and what convergence means is the dream of all of the New 52 haters, the return of pre-New 52 continuity. Hopefully not forever, being a New 52 person myself. Don't think it's going to happen. We've also got Marvel's Secret Wars, where they take their two popular universes, the one that's been going for about 75 years, and the one that's been going successfully for about 14 years, I think, actually, the Ultimate Universe, and they go, hey, here's two well-established things, and they create the monstrosity that is Battle World. So, looking forward to May. I think it's going to be an expensive time in comic book buying. Some small news first. I heard a rumour this week. New DuckTales? Really? Yes, it's true. Disney are planning on bringing back the classic children's cartoon from the late 80s, up until 1990, I believe, in 2017. That's a long time to wait. But I have to say that I would probably find that a bit of a guilty pleasure to watch, being a massive DuckTales fan from my childhood. Not entirely sure if it would translate through to being a big DuckTales fan in adulthood, because I will be, by the time that comes out, 35. But it depends. As long as they get the old Scrooge McDuck voice back, then I'm game. Also, something that was doing around last week and had me just, I think, so excited that, in fact, I was so excited that instead of putting it in my show notes, which I do with everything else, I actually just went and put it on Facebook and forgot to put it in my show notes. And that is an image that's doing the rounds. Originally came from Ed Boon, Mortal Kombat creator. He put it on his Twitter account. And it's the rumour that we're going to possibly see the Predator from the famous movie series appearing in Mortal Kombat X or Mortal Kombat 10, depending on how you want to pronounce that, as a downloadable DLC character. Now, the picture that he put on his Twitter account, I believe, was a piece of fan art. So who knows if there's any truth behind that. He certainly seemed like he was up for it, but I guess it depends on whether they can actually get the licensing rights to the Predator. But considering that Mortal Kombat 9 did have Freddy Krueger in it as a piece of DLC, then who knows. I think the Predator would be a truly, truly spectacular addition to that fighting game series. We've got a whole raft of DC TV series news coming in this week. First of all, Fox TV network is going to be filming a pilot for Lucifer based on the Vertigo comics, which is one of DC's offshoots. The Vertigo comics series, which in itself spun out of Neil Gaiman's very, very popular Sandman comic books. They're looking at filming a pilot for this. It follows the character of Lucifer, who is the exactly what you would expect, the fallen one himself, who decides that he's gonna just giving up living in hell, and he has his wings off and decides to go and move to LA, I believe. So that'll be interesting. We've also got some Supergirl casting news. A couple of weeks ago reported that Melissa Benoist is from Glee has been cast in the titular role. And this week we hear that some alums from the Superman, Supergirl universes are being cast in unknown roles. You got Dean Cain, who of course played Clark Kent and Superman in the New Adventures of Superman, or the Lois and Clark series, depending on when you actually came on board, but basically both of those. And Helen Slater, who played Supergirl in the 1984 movie of the same title. As I say, both of these cast in unknown roles. It's not a new thing for DC to do. I think everyone who's played Superman, possibly with the exception of Brandon Routh, but I would have to just check my facts on that, has been in Smallville. Okay, of course, Christopher Reeves famously played... no idea, I've completely forgotten what the character's called. Famously played the scientist who basically told young Clark Kent about his Kryptonian heritage the very first time. Then Dean Cain was also in Smallville as well. So it's, as I say, it's not an unknown thing, and I think it's quite a nice little bit of continuity. So more on that, I suppose, when it surfaces. And we've got big news in the Arrowverse. I've just coined that, by the way. So if you hear anyone saying Arrowverse, I want some credit. The Arrowverse, of course, spinning out of DC's extraordinary behemoth of a show that is Arrow, is yet another spin-off. Well, potentially, or certainly a pilot. Will it go to pilot, or will they just bash it straight out like they did with The Flash? A couple of weeks ago, I reported that the team behind Arrow were looking at doing a spin-off of the Atom, who Brandon Routh again is playing that character within Arrow in season 3, and they were looking at doing a spin-off. They've decided to go just like, hey, everyone's expecting us to spin off the Atom, so let's just they won't expect this, they won't see this coming. The news coming out this week is that they're actually looking at doing a team series featuring, yes, the Atom, but also featuring, at the very least, Captain Cold, Wentworth Miller from in The Flash. So this is now a cross-universe spin-off. Not cross-universe, they're in the same universe. You know what I mean, but a cross-title spin-off. They're looking at bringing in the character Firestorm into this series, and also Katie Lotz's character, the Black Canary. If you are up to date with your Arrow Season 3, you may be wondering what role she would play in a spin-off. If you're not up to date with your Arrow, I won't say any more because spoiler alerts. So we're looking at this Arrowverse is just expanding insanely. A couple of weeks ago I reported that they're actually the creative team behind Arrow and the Arrowverse are looking at ways that they could possibly try and spin a Green Lantern series out. Certainly there's a lot of references for Green Lantern involved in the Arrowverse. Ferris Air, I think, being the main one. So yeah, this universe is it's almost spiraling out of control. I think the CW are going to end up needing a whole channel just to house TV series that are spun out of Arrow. So again, more on that when it surfaces. That's such new news. Big stories today then. Coming from Latino Review, we've got yet more possible news about the forthcoming Spider-Man film. Coming out of the big, I want to say merger, it's definitely not a merger. If I report that, I'll get in trouble because it's totally not true. But the big announcement that Marvel and Sony have finally agreed to share the character Spider-Man. Spider-Man's going to come back into the cinematic universe. If you want the details on that, go and check one of my previous episodes because I've kind of gone over that quite a lot. Looks like we're still looking at Spider-Man coming in for a guest appearance on Captain America Civil War. But in 2017, I believe, we were going to be, at the same year as DuckTales, we were going to be looking for a solo Spider-Man movie, and everyone out there is desperately hoping it won't be yet another origin story reboot. According to Latino Review, they are not planning on doing another origin story, which is just the most sensible idea. It looks like they're bringing, or they're certainly talking about bringing Drew Goddard on board to helm. He directed Cabin in the Woods. I like that. And he was on board to direct The Sinister Six, which is it was going to be a spin-off from the Amazing Spider-Man movies. Which is the most ironic title of the film. It was going to be a spin-off there. They were going to do a Sinister Six movie. So does that mean that Sony is looking at just dumping all of its Amazing Spider-Man projects, spin-off projects? Kind of hope so, because one of those potential spin-offs was an Aunt May focused film, which would have been just the worst idea ever. So it looks like they obviously had a script involved, and they put a lot of whoever they is, I guess Mark Webb probably, and the studio obviously put a lot of work into this. They knew what they were going to do with their Sinister Six. They were building up in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, certainly the first two, and it looks like the rumor certainly is that in the solo Spidey movie from 2017, Spider-Man will be facing off against the Sinister Six. So you've got the director from Sinister Six, and the Sinister Six from the Sinister Six, and the Spider-Man from Spider-Man. So is it actually just going to be the Sinister Six movie but with Spidey in it? Because I don't think he was going to be in the Sinister Six movie. Who knows? I guess we'll find out about that as it comes along. There's also word on the street that they're thinking of calling it the Spectacular Spider-Man. Fair enough. I mean, that is one of the many Spider-Man comics. You've got Spectacular Spider-Man, Amazing Spider-Man, and then you've got a whole bunch of other things. Superior Spider-Man. That's what I'm looking forward to them calling the next film series after they decide to reboot it for the 4th time. So, aliens. That's a different topic from comic books and Marvel and DC and Arrow. A couple of weeks ago, I saw... Actually, it was a month ago. Some pictures suddenly started to surface on the internet of a potential alien... Not even a reboot. I think a sequel. Like a pre-sequel. Pre-sequel? I don't think that's actually the way to do it. We've got pronunciation alert. To be directed potentially by Neill Blomkamp, who directed District 9. Now, some pictures just suddenly appeared out of nowhere about an alien movie that he wanted to film. And all of the reports were basically saying Neill Blomkamp has been sort of secretly wanting to do an alien film. And he put some phenomenal images on his Instagram account or his Twitter, some concept art. And you had some pictures of, actually, I wasn't sure what it was initially. It seemed to be Sigourney Weaver as Ellen Ripley wearing, I thought she was as some sort of an alien hybrid. But actually, it looks like later on, it looks like she's possibly wearing the space jockey's helmet from the corpse from the original alien ship. And then some other great images, including the ship from the planet, which I absolutely no way I'm going to remember. It's LV-264. That's probably completely and utterly wrong. But the original ship from the original Alien, and of course Aliens, because Aliens takes place on the same planet. That ship in a warehouse, and the assumption is that it's a Weyland-Yutani warehouse, and it looks awesome. It looked really, really good. And the reports that were coming out of that were basically saying that Neill Blomkamp wanted to make this alien film and he had loads of ideas, and that actually Fox hadn't said no. They were like, yeah, the Alien franchise is something that Fox, they just want to keep milking that. They will milk it until there is no more milk coming out of that cash cow, right? They love the Alien franchise. You only have to see how many Alien versus Predator movies there are. I like the Alien vs Predator movies. I'm sure by this point you'll be unsurprised that I like a film that other people considered to be bad. I wish they'd done a third one. But there's been so many Alien movies. Fox loves it. So of course it's no surprise that Fox liked the idea of doing another one. But I kind of just put it aside, as I think a lot of people did, as, okay, he wants to do an Alien film. And then suddenly, in the last week, there's suddenly talk about, yeah, it looks like, is it actually happening? Is this Alien film actually happening? Because suddenly there's reports coming out that, the new Alien film from Neill Blomkamp is going to, here's a big thing, it's going to discount Alien 3 and Alien Resurrection. I'm cool with that, by the way, because they were pretty bad. So it's going to carry on from Aliens. It's basically going to follow on from the good 2 Alien movies. Great. That's really good. I love the idea of them bringing that ship to a warehouse. I suppose in the far-flung future, that warehouse doesn't actually technically have to be on Earth. It'd be cool if it was, because wanting to see aliens on Earth and actually ending up with the first Alien vs Predator and Alien vs Predator Requiem is not quite the same things. It would be good to see a futuristic Earth being threatened by to be overrun by the xenomorphs. So yeah, it's cool. And more news coming in today is that they're actually looking to bring more and more characters back on board from the original films. The latest one today is that we might even see Corporal Hicks from the second Alien film, or Aliens. Cool. More news on that when that surfaces, I guess. Last thing to talk about today. I'm not really sure what level of depth I'm going to go into it. I haven't really thought it through in advance. Obviously, in the last week, what is it? As I'm filming this, it's Tuesday. On Friday last week, the science fiction world lost one of its most significant members. It was really a very, very tragic day. That we lost Leonard Nimoy, who, of course, if you don't know him, I would be surprised if you'd managed to watch it this far through this episode without being the sort of person who'd know who Leonard Nimoy is. He, of course, made the role of Mr. Spock in Star Trek to be the famous and, in fact, iconic role that it is. Obviously, Spock is actually being played technically these days by Zachary Quinto, although Leonard Nimoy's Spock was still knocking around in the background. And when I heard that he had passed away, and he's passed away from, I believe it was lung disease. He was 83. Fair enough. He had a good run of it. And it was a very, very awful thing. And the really sad thing is that he obviously was quite ill in the last couple of days, and he was tweeting sort of quite whimsically, tweeting poetry. I wish I actually had his last tweet to hand so that I could quote it. I'm going to pop it up on the screen. But the very, very last thing that he put at the end of his tweet was a hashtag LLAP, stands for Live Long and Prosper. And obviously that hashtag then just slammed the rounds on the internet after he passed away. I felt really, really moved by his loss, actually. And interestingly, certainly for me, is that although I am a self-proclaimed Trekkie, okay, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I love it. The one part of Star Trek that I never really got into was the original series. I think possibly just because I came on board a couple of seasons into Star Trek: The Next Generation, and by that point, going back to original series Star Trek, it was taking a bit of a step back. It didn't quite have the retro value that it has now. So it's the one part of Star Trek, like the actual Star Trek is the one part that I never got involved with, really. Obviously, I've seen the movies. I think I went to see Undiscovered Country with my father in the cinema, and I was fairly young there. I don't think anyone went to see Star Trek V in the cinema because it was so bad. And of course, one of my favourite films in the whole world is the one where they go back in time to save the whales. Yep, The Voyage Home. So this character of Spock has played a part in my childhood because I love that film with the whales. And actually, interestingly, I was thinking about it over the weekend. One of the certainly one of the earlier episodes of Next Generation that I remember does actually feature, I think it is the episode that had Leonard Nimoy in it playing Spock. So I kind of remember seeing him in my early Star Trek days anyway. But of course, Leonard Nimoy has just been a pillar within the science fiction community. You know, he spent some of his early days, I think, raging against the fact that everyone just knew him as Spock, whereas he did a whole bunch of other stuff as well, including, I heard he recorded 7 albums, and yet whenever anyone plays any music that Leonard Nimoy ever made, it's always that awful Bilbo Baggins Hobbit song. So we'll not play that here. But of course, he just used to rock up in science fiction. I remember him turning up in an episode of The Outer Limits. Again, when I was a child. I think The Outer Limits was on in the 90s. So I was probably in my early teens, I guess. And suddenly, Leonard Nimoy is there. And he just appears, and it's like, it's cool. He's Spock. He's in an episode of Outer Limits. He wasn't afraid to do that. He would just rock up in random episodes and stuff. Of course, he appeared in Fringe as well, just like out of the blue. It's like, bam, there's Leonard Nimoy. Amazing. And of course, most recently, he's been in The Big Bang Theory, playing the voice of an action figure of Spock. Yeah, it's a really, really sad day, actually. Oh, it was a sad day on Friday. It's kind of nice that the last significant movie role that he had was as Spock. I've, in previous episodes of The Word Slinger, I have gone off on a little bit of a bender about J.J. Abrams' Star Trek reboot films. Now, just to reiterate, I do love them, but I also kind of love to hate them at the same time. And the sort of the overuse of old Spock. But it's kind of now fitting that you can go back and see him playing that role that made him so big as like the last role he played. It's just a shame that it was in Star Trek Into Darkness and not in the original Star Trek film. That's all I really wanted to say about Leonard Nimoy. As I said, I didn't really plan this part of it. I just wanted to have a little bit of a chat about what he meant to me. And I guess really what he means to me is just that he is part of this science fiction genre that is a significant part of my life and a significant part of a lot of people's lives out there. And actually, you don't have to be a total massive geek or a total massive nerd to enjoy a bit of science fiction. For me, you do. But I know lots of people who don't go to conventions, who don't collect so many millions of collectibles, who don't buy all of the DVDs, who do like to sit down and watch science fiction or read science fiction because it's a genre that they enjoy. And he's a massive part of that genre. And for me, we've lost something big. We've lost something significant. And it's an absolute tragedy. And Leonard Nimoy, rest in peace. He will be missed. So I think that leaves it as a good place to sign off. Until next time, live long and prosper.